Good morning, welcome back to my morning meditation space. I'm at the beginning of January in 2022. The theme this year has definitely been transformation, and not only changes but transforming. Out with the old and in with the new for sure. And for today's morning meditation space, we're going to be jumping into the masculine, talking about masculine energy. We did the feminine energy a couple of weeks ago, so today we're going to talk about the masculine stuff. And in starting out all of this, deepening. Once you're on earth for enough lifetimes, your old soul will begin to long for non-grasping, detachment, and surrender. They bring the peace of God. So in this world of unconditional love, I think that unconditional love is something we have to put into ourselves, right? Because then we're talking about worth, self-worth, as it pertains to divine love, worth and divine love, and masculine, and what is the masculine's worth in all of this. And there's an emphasis in the masculine as far as it being in the forefront, but as far as the masculine's worth, I feel like the masculine energy feels worthless because there's such a push for all this feminine energy. Like, suicide rates are so high among men in this world of men because love for men is very complex. Well, love in general is complex. It's simple. It's a simple energy. I mean, if it's divine love, right? I mean, there's one vibration as far as that aspect of it goes. And the masculine aspect is just as important as the feminine aspect because it brings in the balance. So when you offer everything to the divine with detachment, you begin a love affair with spirit. And again, there's that word detachment. And one of the things I talk about often is the difference between, maybe not the difference, but emphasizing the language and the linguistic program when it comes to this concept of unconditional love, and having a replacement for that being detached compassion, right? Detaching yourself emotionally from the outcomes, the expectations, the ego, the emotional ego, right? And accepting the divine aspect of that. So we're not channeling from our solar plexus, right? From our ego, from the center point. We're opening our channels and channeling in through our crown. This is our divine source connection, right? And then you just have to give it all up to that. Surrender is come forward. Surrender, letting go of, detaching from. This deck that I have is a Native American tarot deck. And Mother Earth comes forward. So there's a Mother Earth card, and this talking about the masculine. Because you can't have one without the other. And what I like about this deck is it extends beyond the major and minor arcanas, and it has two additional, so the Father Sky and the Mother Earth, because it's Native American, so it's including another dimension, right, for our perspective as we shift things forward. I'll read to you what it says out of the book. The earth is symbolized by plants carried in the womb like a baby, which take life where the mother places her feet. In the earth, things bear fruit and are nourished and protected. And it's a female principle, so there's a female principle coming forward with men, which I think is interesting, right? Or men embracing their female qualities. And it's beautiful because we have this movement, I suppose, or a frequency of the femboy, right? So we're, again, I guess, reconditioning some of the words and some of the languages here, getting men to open up and accept the emotional aspects of them and the emotional counterparts to them. And it's challenging, right? Tempering the emotional qualities, because this is what men are so good at for women, in the mother nature aspect of it, right? And bringing in this balance and fertilizing it so that something can grow. I mean, it's a necessary element and a component. And with so many men out there with this illness as far as, or a delusion as far as manhood and what manhood means, delusional, right? Hitting sensitivities there, because so many men are going to be, what do you mean I'm delusional about my manhood? I know what it means to be a man. Clear it. What do you know, woman, about being a man? And I grew up a tomboy mostly. Like, stepping into my feminine energy is something that's been very difficult for me. But I love men. I love the masculine energy. I love the strength that they have, and the focus, and the clarity, and the determination, and the tenacity. And when you get a good man, that protective aspect, that protective quality, right? And if you're in that feminine, vulnerable space, you need something more protective on the outside of it. But it's balance, right? And then, I don't know, a picture coming to mind as far as like feminine, masculine, male, female, if we're looking at the genetics of it, the genetic expression is a lot more complicated, right? Because you can have like the gene expression for masculine and feminine, then you can have another expression for masculine and feminine. So there's these different traits that live within us that we can only recognize if we see the gene for it, right? Which can then get us to look at or question what sexuality means to us. I mean, it's something much more complex, and I'm very honored and blessed to know a lot of different types of men in my life. Men from all sorts of different cultures: black, brown, Asian, white, young men, older men, gay men, straight men, women who now identify as men, men who now identify as women, people in that transitionary phase. I've known very soft and timid men. I've known very aggressive men. And I feel like masculinity is such a broad spectrum, just as much as femininity is this broad spectrum. And it's being overlooked in a lot of different ways because, again, we have such an emphasis on the mother and healing the mother, and that's all great and fine. And we also need to focus on healing the masculine aspects of that one as well. 10 Pentacles come up in here. So there's men that are cultivating new ideas and new ideologies. Is that right? Men that are shifting and restructuring what a lot of this looks like, and men who are acting as liaisons in a way, because I think, especially men who live in these interstices maybe, or the men who live these very integrated and dynamic lives where they can understand or extend themselves like within different boundaries and energies, because they can communicate, especially some of the more feminine men, they can communicate to women things that women can't communicate to women, right? And, they can communicate things to men that men can't communicate to men, and women can't communicate to men, and men can't communicate, so on and so forth. It's a new perspective and a new understanding and a new lens. But I see a lot of men in this space, or opening up into this space, navigating anxiety, navigating depression, the anxieties of the cultures, right, or the anxieties and the excitements or the potentials that come with shifting culture, if anything, because that's what it is. 10 Pentacles. Oh, it's Sage in this card. It's always funny to me because I never read it as Sage at first. But it's purifying the dwelling, the blood, the sweat, purifying the body, right? Sage is purified to offer to the buffalo woman. I mean, you have to have if men are making an offering to women, as far as offering a seed, or an idea, or a hope, or a union, a connection, a bond, it has to be one that is clean and one that is clear. And this is perhaps where many men aren't quite at, is looking in the offering, because the expectations for the offering have been diminished in a lot of ways. Or in my experience, it's been the giving from the space of ego with an expectation in return from the woman to show up in a certain way, where it's not so much a peace offering in respect to the woman, it's offering some sort of material good in expectation for a sexual exchange, which is where we deviate from the divine love aspect and the worth, because it seems like so many men tie up their worth in what type of women they can get, right? Or how many women they can get. It becomes this possessive, competitive thing. It becomes something divisive, if that's the tool. And it's tapping into what this sacred nature is. And again, releasing a lot of these expectations, because as we're deepening and going deeper into our humanity and our expressions of humanity, but I mean, that's where the depth is. The depth, right? If we're going to go deeper than our solar plexus, we're going to drop lower, we're going to drop into our sacral, and our sacral space, that sacred nature. That's that creative space, creativity, self-expression, sexuality, right? Before we ground into the material world, we have to surrender our will and surrender our ego, right? Kick ourselves out of the driver to allow divine source to move us and to steer us, because we're all aligning, especially with this Venus retrograde. Is that what is happening right now? Like everyone is like shifting and kind of realigning more with a higher purpose or destiny, right? I mean, if there's something the collective is destined to share together, and it's accelerated growth and accelerated potential. So I guess we'll dive back into some more cards. I got some jumping off of the table here. I think before I kind of go into this native, we're going to ride the line here, kind of ride the boundary between this native expression and the Aquarian deck. High Priestess is on the top here, and so if we're stepping from this masculine Piscean I, me, mine reality into the Aquarian age, or into this Aquarian feminine we collective space, what does that mean for men? And the artwork in this one, it's soft, it's an Art Nouveau, but the interpretations are a little more blunt and a little bit more straightforward. And if there's anything that my energy likes to play around in, it's in this space of being blunt. I don't know, I'm such a restless spirit. Get bored easily. And so, I don't know. Again, I guess as everything is just kind of scattered, I'm going to cast my net out amongst the world. My dog's digging at something. Kiss! Okay, she found food over there. Right? She's been chewing on a bone. She's feeling the restlessness today, too. So we're going to go out into the world and kind of cast my net out there. And pull in a focus for some masculine energy. And maybe we'll see what the women have to say about this, because I have my Women in Science Tarot deck, and I think that would be an interesting balance with all of this here, too. Let's go deep. A Knight of Pentacles. Beginning a journey, beginning to go deeper. Starting out on a new material journey, right? If we're going to materialize something from divine self and higher perspective, what does that look like? I mean, man, you're, especially in this, the age of the 70s, 80s Disney, I mean, maybe even before that, like the pre-90s or the pre-millennia Disney. There's this knight in shining armor where men have to go out and save the princess and go and slay some dragon and conquer some demon in order to get the girl or get the woman. And it's always that the demon or this dragon is something outside of himself. But if we're deepening, then the dragon that the men have to slay right now is the dragon within themselves. Which is challenging because men aren't gifted the social culture of emotional expression. However, there is a new culture, a shift within a collective culture that allows men this safe space in men's groups to go through this. And I know a couple of very talented, brilliant men who have these men's group to talk about some of these more difficult spaces and create these spaces where they're working through their own shit. And I think it's beautiful, and I think it's amazing, and it's interesting to see what kind of men are drawn into these groups, but it's happening. So they're out there and they're doing the work, and I think for women in this space, knowing that men are going through and processing and doing this work, being able to hold space for that without having to jump into mommy mode to want to like come in and save or heal or fix or to do the emotional labor for the men. Because if there's one thing that women have been positioned to do, it's to do emotional labor. Men are in this realm of doing physical labor, but there's a physical labor in the emotional aspect. When you're feeling the emotions, you're going through the physical body, so you have to heal the physical body to go through it. So again, shift the language. If you're not liking the language of healing your emotions, then find a way to get deep into your body to heal the emotions through the physical work and through the physical exercise, because the body and the mind are intertwined with, but again, with the spirit. We leave out the spirit dynamic very often, where this, especially within like modern psychology or behavioral psychology, we're in the into this idea that we have a hunger drive and we have a sex drive. We have these two driving systems, right, that motivate our behavior, that motivate us to do things. I'm of the belief system that there's a spiritual driving system that motivates us beyond that. Because how many spiritual people do we know, or how many people do we know that forego food or forego sex in different ways because they're looking for a deeper connection, right? That's where that family comes into the play in these future generations, because the future generations are looking back at you, wondering if you're looking far enough into the future to heal your own shit, especially heal your own genetic lineage and ancestral whatevers, right? So that it doesn't pass forward into these future generations. Because if our generations can take accountability for our not just our actions and our emotions, but just for where we are collectively in the world, recognizing that we own or have or possess these traumas. I don't know what person really hasn't experienced trauma, but when trauma gets pushed beyond these limits, not necessarily to a point of no return, where we get into these stress. I don't like the word disorder, right? Because the stress, I think the stress emphasizes or is pointing to a natural disorder that is already occurring, right? Because then we're back to this temperance and finding the balance. And so if we switch the dialect, or if we change the language, and we recognize it as post-trauma stress instead of a disorder, it's part of the order of chaos of whatever that is, and the order and the disorder is no matter of perspective and where you're looking at it from, right? But it's this stress that we're feeling from the post-trauma that the world and the collective has experienced up to this point, and it's a lot of stress, and it comes out in so many different ways. And if we can't communicate from a balanced, egoless space connected to this higher dimension, I mean, we're really going to get nowhere, because this is what we're looking for, and this is what we want. Oh, splash of water, man. A big part of the reason why I wanted to talk about men this morning is because, I don't know, men are on my mind. Men's on my mind. Love is on my mind. Finding partnership is on my mind. And having gone through this phase and working through the emotional stuff and kind of coming up out of the dark night of the soul, coming out of the depths and coming out of the deeps and waking into purpose, destiny, the mission in life, and this direction that we're pointing and going, right? Like family. What does family look like? And I'm a person who shoots for the ideals and can be impractical about those ideals, because I'm an idiot when it comes to love. So I'm gonna do my best, kind of delineate my own shit here with where masculine stuff is at and kind of what that would look like, because the Fool is a fresh start and it's a blank slate, and it's starting from the bottom, from this ground up, bottom up processing in this building. And we don't know why we do it necessarily. We don't know why we have this drive that's ingrained or programmed into our genes to bring us into these families, to bring us together. I mean, here's the Hierophant, right? And this tension in this space of whatever, there's the unity and the bringing together. And within the realm of the natives, when we're talking peace, right, we're not talking peace as in a division, right? Things are not split apart, they're together and they're unified. But in this unification where things come together as one, we have to still be able to discern ourselves within that. Because I know, like, my fucking dumbass, like, when I fall in love, and it's happened to me a couple of times in life where where when I haven't been looking and I haven't been ready, or it's just not necessarily the thing on my mind, it's just kind of come up out of nowhere and like just sweeps me off my feet and just pulls me into this very lofty space. I gotta call myself. I gotta call myself out on this one, I guess, is looking for the ideals within this, or creating expectations and standards for relationships in myself and men that maybe aren't clear or haven't been clear maybe up to this point, because I haven't really known what I wanted, because I haven't really known who I am or really accepted it. I lost myself. I mean, I have a tendency to do that within relationships. I know there are a lot of people within relationships, when they give themselves wholeheartedly to the situation, can lose themselves in that process. And having a watery moon, having a Pisces moon, getting absorbed by other people's emotions and things and stuff, this is where that unconditional love thing can get us in trouble, right? And because if I have unconditional love for another person, like, I'll give until I've got nothing left, to my detriment. You know, I have a tendency to see people as better than they are, and I've learned my lesson over time, so that now I'm very cautious. Maybe too cautious, and then to my own fault at that too, right? So it's finding this healthy balance within the middle. And it can be difficult in that point, within that center, at that 5 point, because there's a lot of tension. Like, things can go up or things can go down, but that excited potential doesn't necessarily, I mean, the anxiety, right, or the stress that comes from anxiety, the brain doesn't know the difference, whether it's like a fear anxiety or a good excitement anxiety. Like, the body responds the same way. So it's our minds, right, that are getting in the way of some of these very simple things. So one who leads one away from too worldly concerns, possibility of marriage or alliance of some kind, and wanting to bring things together. I don't know, somebody wants to get married, somebody maybe is getting married or is about to be getting married, or there's Venus has been in retrograde, so it's another big shift in relationships, where I've seen marriages that have been together for a really long time all of a sudden are shifting and ending. And a couple of weeks ago at a live event, I had which I decided was going to be my last reading of the evening, just because the energy started shifting, and he was kind of my confirmation for it. But this man in his later 20s who was explaining to me that he was getting ready to go on a trip with this woman that he's into, but this woman isn't his wife. And it's just, you can't have your cake and eat it too, necessarily, in those two worlds. And that guy didn't pay me, right? So I know there are men out there who don't respect women. They just don't. You might think you do, but you're probably so jaded and hurt by women, or I don't know, like, kind of like that mommy issue thing that comes into play. Like, and that's not like anybody's fault, because the mommies who play into that, who enable these boys to do the things, who don't let them go out, like, they're an issue too. So it's, I don't know, I feel like for the people who have been married, who were in long marriages, are probably going to be learning lessons about what partnerships mean through being single, may not remarry ever. Where did my deck go? Oh, there it is. And then there are those who I feel, especially because the energy hasn't shifted and changed, judgment, like the judgment is coming. It's like the kind of a time of reckoning. So if things have been really good and great and wonderful for you in the old matrix, they're probably gonna start getting pretty bad, because the old matrix programming isn't gonna work in this new matrix program, right? If the matrix program has been updated, I don't necessarily want to say upgraded, but maybe updated, then it's going to take a shift, you know. And then so for those who haven't been married, or those who haven't, or who have struggled a lot, who have gone through, again, like that dark night of the soul and these really horrible, awful things, who haven't been able to succeed or like find their place in the old matrix, in the update, in the program, things are going to start shifting and things are going to start working for you in this new favor. Congratulations, I guess. But it comes with responsibility, so we'll look at that too. Sorry, I'm drinking a lot of water. Sorry for drinking water. So Tower. I mean, that's okay, so that's where we're at. It's a Tower point collectively. So again, if you, like I said, things have been rough up to this point. You can see that my hands are kind of in the way. They'll get easier. Loves are going to come together. Harmonizing agents are going to come together. Full cups. I mean, there's like a lot of really cool energy here for men in this masculine energy. So maybe it's men doing the healing work. I mean, the work is showing. You're attracting to you that which is meant for you, and inspiring people around you. And you probably don't see it, so you have to get a new perspective on things, right? Kind of tie yourself to the cross here. And within this card, I like this one. There's some that are represented this way, right, where you can see this hanged man, but he's not stuck there. Like he's not tied down. I mean, he can free himself. We don't know if his hands are bound or not, but he's got a free leg, right? He's a tree pose. He's an uprooted tree, getting a new perspective on things, or rooting in through his crown and grounding in through this divine love and divine spirit and connecting in with this. I mean, he's a free man. They look very different from this perspective, but really, like, they're one and the same. I think one just acknowledges his worth and then the other doesn't, right? You're an expression of love. I mean, you have all of that within you, but that's funny because there's that delusion card. And I didn't want to say that men were deluded, but it's looking through the delusions. Intention without surrender, right? There's the surrender again, can be a fast path to delusion. So if you're not going to surrender to love, like if love calls you up on the phone and asks you a question, are you going to maintain the delusion in your head that love, because things right now aren't what they seem, right? So that which seems evil is probably good, and that which seems good is probably not very good for you, right? So it's taking a chance and taking a risk and looking at things from a new perspective and being open to love through this tower moment, so you can unify and have all of these things together, and kind of coming at it from this foolish perspective, right? Only fools fall in love. Oh, see, there you go. And if you're not going to allow yourself to feel foolish and vulnerable and open, then you're not going to get this love for yourself. You know, because if you set the intention out there that you want peace and love, Mr. Man, right? You want strength, Mr. Man. But you're not surrendering to, I can't just say the feminine perspective or the feminine principle, because it's not that. It's surrendering to the divine whole. It's surrendering to your purpose and all of it. If you're not going to do that, you're going to get stuck in this delusion. That delusion is the old matrix system and that old program. Right? And I don't want to stay in that old program. That's not where you're going to find me. But, I mean, again, with love, can we really go looking for it? And this is a Page of Cups here. I'm going to look here. Because he's kind of confusing me. And maybe intentionally men are out there, like, being confusing. Like, this book is always confusing for me. Everything is new here. I mean, even, okay, so, like, new birth, new child, new kids, new things coming in. I mean, it's a completely new way of life, but you have to surrender to it, especially if you've never had it before and don't know what it's like. And I think it goes the other way, too. So I had a woman that I did a reading for, which brought something forward in my mind that I've really only, I guess, considered through the perspective of a woman, or from being a woman, because I'm a woman, I don't know. But it makes me wonder if men are like this at all, or similar. Because, like, if for women it's like safety in numbers in some way, or, I don't know, maybe even groups or teams of things, but it's rare, maybe, that you see somebody out on their own, like being a loner. I'm a loner. I spent like 3 years in high school, like hanging out alone by myself in my softball coach's room, just like in my own world, but still able to connect with just about anybody and everybody. I don't know, like I'm a firm believer that people show up in my life in that divine timing. I mean, if I'm in that alignment and resonance and frequency myself, right? I mean, even divine love, children come in through that space as well. I mean, there's a contract, a beautiful, loving woman, intuitive and yet practical too, happy marriage vision. But you have to trust the woman. And what I hear from a lot of men is that they don't trust women, or women are scapegoated a lot, women are made the problem a lot, or they're diminished a lot, kind of culturally, and painted as these, especially in religion, like devious and deceptive creatures who can't be trusted. And that is not Mother Earth. You don't, there's no trust, there's no love. So if there's love, you gotta trust. And if you're going to trust and provide an offering to the divine and to the feminine, to something sacred, then you have to honor yourself and honor your own temple within that. Because if you're not honoring your own temple and polluting it, or poisoning it, really, and polluting it doesn't have to just be like drugs and alcohol, bad food, sugars, energy drinks come to mind. Oh, please lay off energy drinks. Sex, sex. Okay, so let's talk about sex for a minute. I think a lot of men, I don't want to say just, it's not just men, but find that emotional connection or like healing within sex. And I don't think it's fair to use women as your healing vessels, or like vesicle comes to mind. I mean, some women are. I think maybe like women in cat houses maybe could, some of them, but I mean, like, you can't isolate it or locate it to like a specific place. Again, it's an energetic frequency, and some women can alchemize energy in that regard, but not all can. And so if you're trying to escape, right, or find some sort of way to not feel pain by feeling pleasure or whatever, and you're getting that pleasure through another person, male or female or whatever, as long as it's not animals and children. It's like, don't even, like, if you're gonna even go there, then just fucking jump off a cliff. Save us all some time and some energy. Like, let's not dive into that. I want to like focus on like positive male sexuality, because as I start diving down this rabbit hole of male sexuality, then this is where like those like dark scary things are not gonna come out of that one. Maybe we'll like do like deep dark scary aspects of men and women or something like that one day, because I feel like I can talk about this, but it has to be in a different space and get into trigger warnings, and then it's gonna get into controversial stuff, and I'm not gonna right here. So men get to make a choice and a decision as the shit's hitting the fan, as old systems are crumbling, as new structures are being built, but as the tower hits, again, I mean, because like if you're gonna go and try to save the princess in the tower and you gotta fight this dragon or whatever, but the tower's on fire, you're gonna go climb up there and try to go rescue some princess that you think is up there? Because I don't know, from the feminine perspective side of things, I don't like to be perceived as a princess in dire trouble who must be rescued by some man. I don't need some man to come along and rescue me, you know? Like, I need an equal counterpart. So let's dive into this one and kind of explore the Four of Swords within this, because we've been battling for a long time. There's like a contemplation of a contemplation of separation. What do you cut out, right? Well, if you're going to be attuning yourself or aligning yourself with something more divine, right, then you have to separate yourself from all that is not and all that is toxic. And there's a lot of risk in that space, because if you're not coming from a space of love or a clear head, then you can make a decision or decisions ultimately that could be to your detriment. You're going to put the knife in your own casket at that point. But it's recuperation. Retreat, recuperation, exiled. But like finding the peace within, because you have to detach from the old system and the old matrix if you're going to go into a space of radical transformation, right? Oh, I don't think I finished that thought earlier. Of, like, being alone and being a loner. Because if you're cocooning and you're going through this transformation and getting to know yourself, it's not a selfish act to cut out people and focus on yourself. Though I can tell you from experience, when you make the decision to go into your cocoon and cut out all the distractions in life to focus solely on yourself and healing, people can get the wrong idea of that, especially if there's a codependent aspect within that, right? Because we have certain expectations that people are going to show up and do things for us, and if they don't do things for us, well, then they're only thinking about themselves. But we tell people all the time to, go within and heal yourself and put the air mask on yourself if it's healing. So we're receiving these conflicting messages, right, that have nothing to do with our intention. And if our intention is coming from a pure space of love, right, you have to cut out all the monkey chatter and all the clear things and take time to rest. It's not about work, go, who can build the most, be the most, big the most, raw, like manpower, I'm macho, I can do all of the things, sleep is for pussies, and this is for bitches, and that is for girls, and this is for blah, and this is like, are we listening to the language? This programming, our brains. Don't do that. Because if you're listening to the language in this old matrix system that's trying to, it's feeding in this program that you're somehow bad and should destroy yourself. And if your ego can't wrap around this, you're bad, destroy yourself, right, then I must then therefore destroy all others, because somebody else's perspective of me is a threat of myself, and it's this ego. And there's so much male charge, trying to hold on to this thing as it is, because their worth is tied into how much they do and how big they can be, and right, how much junk they got in their drawers. There are these very material pressures that are put onto men that create a lot of body issues for men and these insecurity issues for men, right? That they don't have the emotional tools or the language to comprehend in an articulate way, I guess. So it comes, or in a mental way. So it comes out in a physical way. Whereas women are kind of inverted from that. For women, it comes out in a mental way because we're not permitted for it to come out in a physical way. So we're shifting within the dynamics, right? And we're exiling ourselves from the old program to reattune our frequencies to adjust it to build and co-create a new program, because it doesn't exist yet. If you want a new program to exist, you have to bring two different things together. Something maybe that you once thought about pursuing, but for whatever reason didn't, out of fear, or how to do something to go heal yourself and fix whatever. Wait for this specific time in the alignment and the history for the new ideas to be born and to come through, because the economy now is more absorbent of these new ideas. So it's not so much we're going to go in and fight or go in and battle in this revolution. It's a creative revolution, not a destructive revolution. So the revolutionary idea within this space is to tap into divine love and that feminine creative expression, and to employ new concepts and ideas and new systems so that we can build a better future and build a better castle. What was I watching the other day? Something, I spent like all of Saturday watching lectures and documentaries about quantum physics, and in one of the examples, and one of them somewhere, right, they were talking about these two castles, or these two structures, one built by termites and the other one built by, was it Da Vinci? Maybe. I don't think it was. I apologize. It's a big, elaborate castle, temple structure where, like, the details of it are just stunning and immaculate. I mean, it's an engineering and artistic feat that just blows your mind, right? And then it's compared to a termite mound or termite castle, and they look almost identical. One's very organic and one is very technical in its application. So we're talking about that bottom-up processing versus that top-down processing, right? And here we have castles being built. So whether or not you're a top-down or a bottom-up processor, whether or not you have a plan specific in mind that you're going to engineer to employ whatever to do things for you, or if you can surrender into this divine flow, this kind of divine will, drive, and kind of go into that like termite mentality mode where we're allowing our genetic program to steer us without questioning what it is or whatever it is that we're doing. Like, we're just building and co-creating and doing these pieces. Like, I'm doing this because I know this is my part, without any logic or whatever. I'm just showing up and building here, so that as you can dive into yourself and show up and co-create over here, I mean, together we build this castle and a new material world, something else. Like, it's a castle up on a hilltop, and it's bringing together all these different ideologies, right? And it's like, if I'm a representation of a feminine energy and I feel like I'm ready for partnership, and I've done the work and I've done the healing, and this is a feminine era, and I can feel empowered and grounded and like confident in myself as a woman, like there's a sense of security here, where's the man to meet me? Because I see like the men out there doing the work or whatever, seeing them growing and being independent and building their foundation and being strong out there. But there's still a wall. Let's talk about that wall. Let's go back into the Native Tarot deck for this one. Because it's a wall of communication. It's a communication barrier. So how then can we, for the collective, break down this communication barrier between the masculine and between the feminine? Like, who reaches out to whom first, or how do we approach this in a way that is mutually understood and mature, emotionally mature, emotional maturity, right? I just keep looking at this and keep looking at this for love, and it makes me so happy that when I'm diving into the masculine energy, I see love and men wanting to come together and build families and futures and cultures and communities and be these divine feminine expressions of men, male, love, compassion. But it has to be a detached compassion, because if you attach yourself emotionally, then we're talking about the ego male, emotional male, matrix programming male, and that's where we have this toxicity. So if we're going to flush and clean it out, right, with the water, then we've got to flush it from the top down and clear it. Let the pure light kind of come through, filter everything out. Because if we're going to be pulling up from Mother Earth, like Father Sun, the masculine energy is the sun. Channel that inward, pull the sun in, be like, feel the warmth, the sun, be the sun, right? The sun to the mother. The nurture, warmth, there's a detached aspect where it allows the feminine earth to grow. And the Father Sky in the other deck, maybe I'll just read the bit just for the balance. But Mother Earth is one thing, Father Sky is another thing. And there's these two ethereal differences. It's a matter of manifestation and bringing things together in these Ace of Wands, empowering, raising your staffs up to the spirits, right? We're bringing everything up into the air, up into the sky, and the feathers are the channels that bring everything inward and down and into us, and reaching out into that God's work through your hands. Artist craftsmanship came up earlier. So anytime you make something or do something with your hands or express with your hands, because men, if verbal communication is difficult, be aware that 85% of our communication is non-verbal. So you don't need the words to communicate what you're feeling or whatever it is you're going through. Gestures, you can use your hands open versus closed. If you're feeling yourself closed off and going into tension modes, and get out of your head and into your body, and then just open yourself. It's like a symbol for opening within. Just open your hands and unclench the tension and let the energy out, the creative energy out into the world, instead of trying to pull all that creative energy in and harness it, or to like contain it within you, right? I mean, it's not something that's yours that you get to like hold and possess and like keep from the rest of us, right? This is a very closed off. But if you open and you give the energy and you open the creative expressions and you open yourselves, whatever, then you're giving love. It's simple. Just from gesture, something to play with. Let's see. Let's look. The medicine staff. If made of fir, it inspires peace. If made of birch, wisdom. Poplar, clairvoyance. And oak, strength. Planted in the fields, it makes them fertile. So a medicine staff, again, what is your intention? What are you making your medicine staff out of? Being mindful of the subtle details, because any intention you put into it is going to carry through. And if there's an intention of separation, ask yourself whether or not that separation is a wall that you're putting in place to protect yourself in isolation. Because as you break through and come out of that chrysalis and come out of that shell, the wall has to come down. But it's a tough wall. But you don't have to fight it. I mean, you can, if you plant it in the ground and it creates fertility and it allows things to grow, then we're talking about new growth or plants, or like vines. I see like vines climbing up and over the walls. Mother Nature, if all the humans disappeared on Earth and we left behind all of our structures, Mother Nature would eventually climb all of the walls and break them all down. So like, man, the ego kind of has to abandon its own structures and ideas of what and of trying to control or contain Mother Nature. to let Mother Nature kind of take over. And when Mother Nature can take over, the men can figure out how to come in and then work with it. Let's read Father Sky. The sky is the seat of the divine creator, guarantor of the earth's fertility through rain. From the sky of transcendence and the infinite arrives knowledge and law. Male principle. So again, with fertility, a fertile earth is nothing without rain. A fertile earth is nothing without seeds to plant in it, these two dynamics have to come together to create something new. Otherwise, nothing new is ever created. These two just kind of stagnate and die off, or they get stuck into their own shit. I don't know. I guess we'll pull one or two more. I grabbed the Aquarian again. Okay, because the sun. Right? Reaching into that masculine potential and owning the air and really knowing what it's like to be a man. But that isn't disrespecting the woman. You can have all the machismo things in you, but if you're teaching disrespect of the feminine principle, you're nothing. And it takes a really hard, deep look at yourself, separated from everybody else's inputs and opinions and whatever, to come to a clear truth and understanding, because people in general have a tendency to surround themselves with the self-confirming, the confirmation bias, the people pleasers, right? Those who will uphold the delusion that we've created for ourselves. We see this a lot in systems or business systems. There's a male leader, male person in charge. I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to point out your shortcomings just so you can attack me. I'm not playing that. I'm coming from a place of love. It's critique isn't a threat to your identity unless your identity is tied into your ego. But if your identity is tied into the divine source, any of these critiques or truths or opposing perspectives or differing perspectives aren't seen as a threat. It's seen as an opportunity for growth. You can see this as threatening, intimidating, or scary, or you can see it as an offer and honoring of peaceful guidance and a connection to something much higher and beyond. Depends on your own perspective and your own lens. And if you're allowing other people to tell you what it is, then you are not being a leader. That one might be enough to get some men to shift. But the sun, I grabbed it from the other book too. That's funny. Just show you again one more time the sun and the energy. And I'll read it out of the Aquarian. I like reading the things out of the books. A lot of people don't, or whatever. There's the thing to it, but I like words as much as I like pictures. So there's more that you can pick out with the words too, like that you can with the pictures. But again, it's all perspective. Contentment, liberation, attainment of personal or business goals. And you can attain all these. You can tap into it. Just because you're shifting perspectives doesn't mean that success can't come through in a new matrix or in some sort of new dynamic. Let's pull maybe one or two more and then I'll close out the space because we're at an hour. There's I don't know, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that I want to say at least, but I don't know. I love men. I think men are fascinating. I've just always had a lot of like men friends in my life, male friends. I said I was a tomboy growing up, and I'm like kind of in the middle out of 7 girls. It gets complicated, and I know like for my dad, because he had all girls and then married my stepmom who's got all girls too. I know like with us, I grew up being called a boy. Come on, boys. Or just I grew up with a consciousness of, oh, I'm disappointed you're not a boy. I guess you can be a girl. And just not being accepted as a girl, right? But always finding, I can't say always, but like finding acceptance with men. Younger is easier as a child, and then as the teenage years kind of kicked in, and then again, especially as I'm getting older, especially at this point in my life, it's difficult to be a tomboy or to have male friends because not all my guy friends are like this. I have some like super amazing male friends who are just like awesome people, but there have been some guys out there who've been like really cool and really great, and they'll be super super nice to you, but as soon as they learn they can't have sex with you or you're not going to put out, I mean, they switch. They go from being like one of the nicest, loving, kindest, whatever people to being some of like the most crude, cruel, brash, and like deliberately mean people. It's just like check yourself in that energy, and I guess I'm gonna kind of explore into that one a little bit. Of like what entitles men to be mean. And that's not to say that women aren't. 4 swords. So more swords. Kind of having a balance, but there's like a nature in it, or like a timidity in some way or another. And what is this, a mouse? I like this deck because it gets away from like some of these standard like tarot symbols, and then gets into some more of the natural elements, Mother Nature, animals. I don't know, through the fields, packing things away, preserving. Self-preservation comes to mind, but again, self-preservation can have something to do with that ego, because at some point or another you gotta sacrifice that aspect of yourself for something much higher. I mean, you don't have to, but imagine how much different your life can be if you do, right? So the symbol of foresight and the hoarding of strength. So again, yeah, like being able to look far enough into the future, for the whole of the species, and like looking to your actions to duty to the collective, extending love of the self through love of the family into like love of the collective, but having an unconditional love for yourself while maintaining healthy boundaries with others. So detached compassion, having detached compassion for others. But compassion, a lot of men are detached. They're not super compassionate. It's hard. It's not that they can't be. It's because when we feel compassion and that feminine energy, we get really attached. And when we get really attached, especially in love, and like, it messes with our heads and our identities and who we think we are in the world. And so, I don't know, there has to be like a detachment from your own ego in some of this as well. So you can be the phoenix rising from the ashes, the 9 chalices. Like, let it burn. Burn, baby, burn. Gotta let it burn. Let it burn. Let it burn. Like, burn it all away. Alchemize it. Like, alchemizing all the material stuff. Like, anything that was of value or whatever, like, a shift in values, maybe. If you shift your values, I mean, you're gonna feel that tower in such a transformative way, maybe a painful way, but I think it's helpful to know that pain is felt in the brain, not in the body. We have pain receptors in the body, right? But we have all this like other information within our perceptions within the body that channels back information to the brain about pain. But pain, or our interpretation or idea of pain, is conditioned. So we can shift our language about what is painful, right? And then begin to take accountability for some of those aches and pains that we have. Understand the emotional relationship that these places in the body, like reflexology or whatever, like there's a connection. So again, you can do the work in the body without having to do the emotional processing directly, right? You can kind of go about it from indirect manners, or you don't have to, like, I don't know, it's helpful to get multiple perspectives, though. The symbol of death and rebirth, the intermediary between men and the gods. It creates heat, maintains life, and purifies, but can destroy everything in a cloud of smoke. So being discerning with those energies and with those powers, and trying to figure out, well, it's not even trying, it's just realigning, shifting out of the ego stuff and into this matrix unit, and just get out of this mentality that you're being recruited to fight a war or battle, because it's a spiritual war where things aren't what they seem. So anything creative is an active war, and any aspect of war might lead to something creative. I don't know. That could be interpreted kind of funny. Where do we leave it? Because I don't want to leave you in delusion. And delusional. And I think right now, if you have questions about something, or if you're uncertain about something, instead of being so certain and linear, we're gonna just kind of like cut out whatever if it's not quite in whatever, like shift your perspective to open things out in such a way where you can be discerning, right? Because if you're filtering out or separating from things that are no longer good for you, that doesn't necessarily mean like cutting or attacking anything new coming in. Right, it's that caterpillar thing coming in. Like if there's butterfly cells coming in within this, and the initial reaction or response of those caterpillar cells is to attack the butterfly cells. And so if you've had a butterfly come into your life and you perceived it as a threat and you've attacked it, and you notice that butterfly cell coming back into your life, surrender to it. Surrender to the butterfly cell. See what it's trying to teach you, show you, and allow yourself to evolve into a butterfly cell as well, and then emerge from this cocoon where you just want to, like, kill everything. Destroy! Oh, we're getting out of the, like, caterpillar, destroy, eat everything in sight, right? Eat until you're too big and you explode and you can't do anything else but transform. Right? Non-duality comes up. All right. Let's put in our intentions. Pick a card, any card. It's going to be this one. Guidance. Follow your North Star, the sun. Stay on point. When you make divine intelligence your foundation, you finally have a fixed star to follow. It's just going to circle back around. I mean, you want to know where to go into life. Quit following your own ego drive and following this. Find the North Star that you're connected to, your highest self, your highest potential. Align with that vibration, that frequency. Absorb the energies of the sun, and then manifest that star energy into the world as love and light. All right. Till next time.